The Folk Tales of the Mountain Backdu. Hello. Today, I am going to tell of the story of the Dragon Palace in the Cheonji. The streams originated in the Cheonji, ran along the valleys of the mountain Backdu to the villages and joined the river. That river was crossing the villages long and meandered through the hills and the fields into the EastSea. There was a thatched house on the hill by that river. This house was enfolded comfortably in a chain of blue mountains behind, and in front of this small house, the blue river flowed around slowly. Jangwoo, a boy of 15 years, was living in this house with nursing his sick younger brother, Bawu, a boy of 12 years. Jangwoo was doing his best to cure his brother. He used to climb mountains to catch medical herbs, and used to visit a sage to ask him an effective remedy for his brother's illness. Because the sage who had been living in the hermitage at the valley of the village placed across the river knew well the medical art. But Jangwoo's all endeavor had no efficacy. Even when he was nursing on his brother, he thought of his mother and it made his mind absent. When his mother was alive, he also was a pampered child. While he was on the scamper at the riverside and got hungry, he came back home and said to his mother loudly,
"Mommy, I'm hungry."
Then his mother had given some food to eat for him right away. His brother screamed out abruptly in pain. He fixed a tattered cloth that his brother was putting on, and thought of his mother again. Tears trickled down his cheeks.
My son. Now I cannot. Please care well, your brother.
He vividly came to mind his mother's face, of when she was expressing her dying wish. It was already midnight. While Jangwoo was nursing his brother, he could not endure drowsiness and fell asleep involuntarily. At that time, his mother came into the thatched house with a benevolent face, wearing a pure white skirt and jacket of the Korean style. She came up to Bao and patted him on the head and looked down at him with her piteous eyes.
For curing you of a disease, it is needed to go to the Dragon Palace in Cheonji, located on the summit of the mountain Backdu, because it is said that the medicine is there. But how can Jangwoo do it? He is too young to go there, isn't he?
She turned around slowly and stood up in front of Jangwoo.
"Oh, Mother, no. I am not a child. Please, let me know the way. I have no limit to go there and get the medicine for Boo."
All right. I'm proud of you, my son Jangwoo.
Jangwoo awoke from his sleep and he knew that it's the dream. Jangwoo went out and saw the sky. The stars dimmed with the bluish light of rising sun in the east sky. After daylight, Jangwoo left for Cheonji. The flowering cloud was flowing in the sky. Birds were twittering on the trees. Jangwoo thought of his mother's saying about the way how to go to the mountain Backdu and left along that road at once. Pushing aside the thorny thickets, he passed through the fields and crossed over the rivers and mountains. His trouser legs and sleeves were torn out here and there, and he got scratches on his arms and legs sporadically. As a range of rocky crags blocked up the road ahead, he thought of the method of crossing and found a narrow path. He caught his breath at the foot of the crag, and then he stuck to that narrow path. In that moment, the old man's saying reminded him of that in the process of going over a precipice you never look down at the bottom, so he went up step by step, concentrating his eyes on the peak of a precipice. But after hard climbing up a crag, in the midst of going across that path, he met again a deep valley and a perpendicular cliff which is too narrow to gain a toehold.
Oh, once I get past this, I will have a clear path ahead of me, but I cannot jump over it, cannot wing. Nevertheless, I must cross over it whether I live or die.
He thought of this and was fretting over. He eventually fell on his knees and prayed to the heaven with closing his eyes and clasping his hands.
Oh God, I entreat you to take pity on my brother, to give me the way to go over that cliff.
When Jangwoo opened his eyes and saw the heaven, a couple of cranes were flying down. Both were biting each white rope with their snouts. The female crane came down and put the end of that rope in front of the place where Jangwoo prayed just before, and the male crane did it on the peak of the cliff. And they pecked each end of the rope and frisked with their long legs and flew forth and back with each other. Just then, Jangwoo could see the new-sprung bridge, the Oxyagyo, before his eyes in an instant, and he bowed continuously to the heaven. Jangwoo crossed the Oxyagyo and reached the side of the Cheonji that seemed to be a round mirror where all was the snow world. Jangwoo rambled about there to search the gate to the Dragon Palace. Meanwhile, he found a red carp that was worn out and was blinking its gills out of breath.
Oh, it is too distressed. Hey, you, what's up?
Jangwoo murmured and brought it into the Cheonji. While the carp was swimming on the water, it came back to Jangwoo 3 times running in a row and sprang up on the water and moved around in a circle and suddenly splashed water with its tail. And then the carp disappeared from Jangwoo's sight in a moment. That moment made Jangwoo's 2 eyes round, because a stone step suddenly appeared in his sight, which led down deeply into the bottom of the Cheonji.
Perhaps it's the doorway to enter the Dragon Palace. Okay, I shall go.
Jangwoo took a step forward slowly. As he went down deeply, so could not he see the sky and could he see many fishes swimming at ease. There was a grandiose palace built with crystal bricks on the bottom of the Cheonji. The palace had a large gate, and on either side of this gate the bluish camphor trees were standing. The sentries had similar faces to humans, but horns grew up on their heads and silver-gray wings dangled over their waists. Jangwoo stood aghast at this spectacle and hesitated whether to go in or not.
So let's go.
Suddenly, he heard the Virgin's clean voice. The Virgin, whose whole body has a light pink color, was looking at him beaming with a smile.
Let me see.
Ho ho ho! I am the red carp. My father is waiting for you.
The pretty Virgin, like a lotus flower, pulled Jangwoo's shirt by her hand intimately. Jangwoo went into the Dragon Palace following the light pink Virgin. He heard the beautiful sound of music and the intermittent drum. At the center of the palace, the Dragon King, who was full of whiskers, sat on the king's seat. The mustaches were divided up to his left and right cheeks and hanging on his horns both. and the long beards hid his chest and then went up to cover his shoulder, which to the right were the red and the left, the white, the magnificent palace, the stately Dragon King. At the moment he met this spectacle, Jang-woo got into a funk and shook all over his body.
Oh, don't be frightened. This is my father.
Jang-woo could not feel relieved until the light pink virgin nudged his ribs with her thumb in order to remind him of his spirit. The virgin walked with soft steps to the Dragon King and said,
Oh, my dear father, this human is just the gentleman who saved me.
Thanks be to you for your having mercy on my princess.
The voice of the Dragon King was rolling and resonant. The Dragon King smiled on his whole face and came down from his king seat and taking Jang-woo in his arm went into the banquet hall where all sorts of royal delicacies served in abundance. The Dragon King put his daughter on the left and had Jang-woo sit down on the right. However, Jang-woo sat face to face with princes such this. He could not eat any food. The princess said,
Why do you lose your eating?
Jang-woo stood up and fell on his knees before the Dragon King and said,
Your Majesty, now my younger brother is fighting for his life.
Beginning to speak like this, Jang-woo explained how he had come to the Dragon Palace. After listening to Jang-woo's saying, the Dragon King nodded his head with patting his beard. On the spot, the Dragon King plucked his 2 strands of beard of each color red and white and put them in Jang-woo's hand.
If you take these, I am sure that these will be very helpful for you, and my daughter shall take over to you the remedy for your brother's illness.
Jang-woo was so joyful as to do not see the finishing of banquet. As the princess sent Jang-woo off, she gave him 3 yellow glossy mushrooms.
If you boil down these by 1 a day and have your brother drink those boiled liquid in the same procedure for 3 days, your brother can overcome his disease.
There were easy roads of Jang-woo's returning. The place where he met the river, there was a bridge, and the cliff appeared a new plain road. After came back home, Jang-woo put beards received from the Dragon King into the old case and boiled down the mushrooms and had his brother drink those liquid for 3 days. In the first day, his brother had a healthy complexion. In the second day, he sat up in the 6th. In the 3rd day, he ran out bouncing to his feet and bounced around shouting,
Brother, my brother.
As his brother's illness disappeared clean, Jang-woo felt relieved of his heavy burden. He thought of the Dragon King who gave the remedy for brother's disease and opened the old case, and that was safekeeping with 2 beards of the dragon. But the beards had disappeared. Instead of them, a piece of gold and a piece of silver were there and had been sending out each light. Jang-woo called his brother into the room and told him one by one about these joyful things. He bowed to the Dragon King of the Cheonji from his knees falling on.